In the past 5 years, the world has seen an increase in natural disasters, both in number and intensity. There are reports of earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis across the globe. You know her name, Katrina. She was a Category 5 hurricane that almost destroyed New Orleans in late August of 2005. Almost 1,600 people died, mostly from drowning, when the levees failed and flooded the city. 200 more died in Mississippi. Katrina is the 5th deadliest hurricane in United States history. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. On January 12, 2010, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake rocked the island and destroyed buildings, towns, and people's lives. Over 300,000 people died, 300,000 more were injured, and over 1 million people were left homeless right after the earthquake.
And now distressed patients fighting over scarce food and water.
It's exactly the problem. They don't have no water, they don't have no food.
Scientists believe the quake was so large because pressure has been building up in the fault ever since the last major earthquake hit here 240 years ago.
On April 27, 2011, an F5 tornado that was almost a mile wide hit Tuscaloosa, Alabama, destroying homes, businesses, and completely disrupting people's normal lives. Over 200 people were killed across the state because of this storm's fury. Sendai, Japan, March 11th of 2011, the most powerful earthquake in Japan's recorded history, a 9.0 undersea quake rocked the country and was followed by a tsunami. The tsunami sent waves of water rolling into towns near the shoreline. More than 14,000 people died, over 5,000 were injured, and still 11,000 people are considered missing. For days, 4.4 million households were without electricity, and 1.5 million didn't have water after this disaster. Hello, I'm Judy Chauncey in San Diego County. The Rose Canyon Fault lies right beneath my feet here near Interstate 5 in La Jolla. This fault can often be forgotten because it lies in the shadow of its big neighbor to the east, the San Andreas Fault, the longest fault line in the world. It's just one of 3 faults that pose a threat to San Diego County residents. Dr. Pat Abbott, a geologist, recently spoke to the Buena Vista Audubon Society about the current threat of an earthquake triggered by the San Andreas Fault here in Southern California. He says the San Andreas is divided into 3 sections, and each piece has its own earthquake history.
When we look at the San Andreas Fault, it's almost 800 miles long, and the northern third moved, the ground surface ruptured for 260 miles. That's the famous 1906 San Francisco earthquake. We come into the central part of California in the year 1857. The earth ruptured along a 225-mile length. But we come down to the southern part, from San Bernardino, Palm Springs, Oceanside, San Diego, that area, that hasn't moved since around the year 1690. So that's more than 320 years ago. So without any fancy science, what do you expect to move next? Our part of the San Andreas. That doesn't mean it will move the next, but it certainly is overdue, and we anticipate that earthquake is very liable to be a magnitude 7.8, and that is going to really be nasty.
This earthquake shaking potential map was first published in 2008 by the California Geological Survey. The brightest red and pink colors indicate the biggest danger locations in California. When an 8.0 earthquake hits the southern third of the San Andreas, it will hit San Diego, Riverside, Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara counties.
To take Oceanside and Carlsbad and these northern county cities, and they're going to get shaken and rocked more than anybody has had happen here since around the year 1812.
And what kind of damage will this cause?
A magnitude 7.8 earthquake on the San Andreas Fault is going to cause a lot of disruptions. For one thing, there's many water lines, natural gas lines, all kinds of lines that cross the fault that are going to rupture.
These ruptures mean that there will be millions of people left without access to water, food, and power. Roads will be torn up, and that will prevent supplies and help from getting through. Also, residents and businesses may be isolated from basic police, fire, and emergency support for a period of time, ranging from several hours to a few days. Some people may be left homeless, and communication lines will be severed.
Well, basically our third floor is now on the second floor, and the first floors are all gone in these buildings over here.
This place was snapped in 1 second. We heard an explosion, a big sound. It was not an earthquake, it was an explosion. That was the sound of all this thing coming off, all their stilts, all at one time from that big first jolt. It sounded like an explosion. Then it dropped us over and dropped us down 12 feet.
We just go flying all over the place, and the bottom floor just started buckling, and we were just falling down. And everything in my apartment came down except for my refrigerator.
Because what we had over here is not just a building that fell down 12 feet and crushed the bottom level, but we have buildings in back that are going over like this and folding because of the other 20 seconds of the rocking. The first 5 seconds killed everybody. It's this other 20 seconds that sat there and took all of our buildings back here and folded them all.
You can't believe that this happened with, only a 6.6 earthquake.
Could a Southern California big one trigger a tsunami like they had in Japan? The experts say no. Yet as Dr. Abbott explains, an earthquake from any of one of these offshore faults could trigger an underwater landslide.
This happened in Papua New Guinea in 1998, where a magnitude 7 earthquake offshore caused a submarine landslide. And the submarine landslide, where the earth mass pushed towards the coastline underwater, that sent a tsunami over the shoreline that killed 2,200 people. Now that's a Southern California type of tsunami.
As these threats loom in our future, what can we learn from past disasters to help us be better prepared? First, people needed water immediately in all of these disasters, and second, they needed food, power, and shelter. And we learned in the days following Hurricane Katrina, the local relief agencies were overwhelmed, and the federal government is too slow to respond to immediate needs for such a large group. Everyone should be ready to help themselves. Here's California Assembly member from the 74th District, Martin Garrett.
It's important for all of us to be prepared, and it starts being prepared. It starts right at home. Put together a preparedness kit, to discuss evacuation routes if necessary, discuss where and how you would communicate if you were separated, and where you would come together at a central location, whether it may be your church, a school, a community center. If you can't get home, an old Boy Scout model, but there's no substitute for always being prepared.